and I think Kenny joined as well. So let's see if everybody wanted to go through for the panelist perspective. Andrew, if you'd like to start, introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi guys, my name's Andrew Callahan, class of 2002. I own a company currently called Venture Retail Partners. Our focus is retail real estate brokerage, sales, consulting, and development. So I started the company 6 years ago. Prior to that, I worked for a larger firm called Atlantic Retail Properties for about 10 years and a couple of years in finance before that. Our focus is in the world of retail. We acquire properties on behalf of mostly national tenants. Some of our clients are Starbucks, Chipotle, and then on the flip side, we sell retail properties as well. By way of example, and really close to St. Mike's in Colchester right now, we developed a little strip center with Starbucks, and we're now selling it. So kind of close to home for everybody.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here tonight. Bobby, if you would like to go next.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Bobby Bailey. Hello, everybody. Class of 99. I am the Vice President of Marketing for Burris Logistics. You might be asking yourself, what is Burris Logistics, or what even is logistics, right? And I'm about a year in here, just moving back from Vermont, where I spent most of my career after graduating from St. Mike's. So I was lucky to be able to stay there. But Burris Logistics, one partner, many solutions. That's kind of the thing, not to give you all the sales pitch, but we are in logistics of, really, it's the frozen and refrigerated food space, right? So we're moving all of the food to retail grocery stores, big club outlets like BJ's, Acme, Safeway, and everything in between. Like, you guys would probably be very shocked to learn all of the touch points on how you ultimately get your groceries. It's a completely new industry to me. I moved from Vermont after spending some time at dealer.com, cutting my teeth certainly in digital marketing. And before that, I was with Fuse Marketing, another really great Vermont company in sports and event marketing, working for properties like the Dew Tour, X Games, clients like Mountain Dew and NBC Sports. And there's a whole chunk there that I maybe we'll end up getting into, but if you guys are looking for career track advice, maybe we'll skip the 8 years that I became a police officer. But all in all, I think it really folds into what we do with sales and marketing and working with people. So it's my quick story. Looking forward to chatting with all of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. And last but not least, Kenny, I believe you are on.
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. So we're going through the Vermont portion of a snow day down here. We have a tropical storm. Kids are home. And for some reason, my camera is not operable. So hopefully at some point throughout this call, we'll get it going. But thanks for having me on. Appreciate the engagement. And class of 2002 with Andrew Callahan. And, I've spent my career in the startup early stage sales environment, and been doing that for now 15 plus years. I've been doing most of it up in the Northeast with these startup companies that the hope is that they get IPO'd or acquired by a larger organization. And then, really I try to move on from there and help another early stage company get their ground in a new market. 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to move down here to the Southeast, which is where I am now in Florida. And it was going to be a temporary move. However, we discovered that there's a lot to like down here in Florida, and we are not coming back. So happy to be on here, and thank you for having us on.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kenny. Appreciate it. Okay. So we're going to jump right into the discussion. I do encourage the attendees. Please feel free to use the chat feature down bottom. Submit any questions that you have, whether you have one now or maybe it gets brought up during the discussion based on something that someone says. But what I did want to do, though, is start off. We did have a couple of questions submitted to us prior to. So we wanted to kind of start the conversation off with that. And then, as I said, we'll monitor the chat and see what other questions anyone else has. So first and foremost, one of the questions that we received for our panelists: if I am trying to consider a career in either sales or marketing, but cannot decide which one are the most important factors that I should take into consideration. So in looking at sales and marketing, what should the individual consider in terms of what field they would like to go into? Any one of the panelists can certainly jump in and start.
I'll raise my hand.
All right, Bobby. It's all you.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a good one. And I kind of segued into it a little bit in my introduction. Listen, I mean, marketing is about as vague as logistics, right? Like when you tell somebody you're in marketing, they're like, cool, what do you do, right? And the answer really could be, I'm a spreadsheet data analyst, or I'm an event marketing person, or I'm in sales enablement, advertising, SEO, content creation, whatever it is. It's all marketing, right? Here's a piece of advice that I'll give, and this is kind of from my perspective. As I mentioned, I did jump around a lot, and I was in event marketing. I worked in an agency. I was hired to do marketing for a cycling coaching company. I did my own marketing for my own businesses. And the one thing that I learned was that you want to get a taste, I think, of everything to ultimately decide. I had friends in marketing at Vermont Teddy Bear, and there were teams that bought ads on Sirius XM Radio, the Howard Stern Show, and there were others that just analyzed e-commerce data, both in the marketing department. But I can tell you which one that I would rather do versus the other. So if you have an opportunity, join a startup where you might end up wearing multiple hats. I go back to my first job where, we were sharing a dial-up internet cord across the office because we didn't have Ethernet. And I was responsible for sales of 50% of the country, to working with retailers and distributors. But I was also responsible for coordinating all of our trade shows. We just wore multiple hats because we had to. And I learned a ton there. And then the other side of that is if you don't have that opportunity, try thinking about an agency, because an agency in the world of marketing ultimately has different groups, and they could be offering PR, event marketing, consulting, and strategy. You can bounce around internally at one of those places rather than, and I'm not, going to fault, getting involved with a company, but rather than being pigeonholed as one type of marketing and then figuring out that you might not like that. So agencies are one, startups are great. And ultimately recognize that even within the world of marketing, there are multiple disciplines that, might not appeal to you or might not play to your strengths. And you gotta kind of figure that out.
Nice. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. Andrew, Kenny, anything to add to that?
I'll let Andrew touch on that. He actually has more of a kind of a marketing business. So Andrew, why don't you go ahead and.
Yeah, sure. And I'd be happy to. And my business is unique in that, technically I'm selling or leasing real estate. Oftentimes we're acquiring real estate either through leases or purchases for our clients. But, part of what we do is also work for big property owners. So we are out there positioning their buildings to be sold. So it's a different way of looking at marketing, right? We're trying to advertise a property. We're trying to reach as many people as possible. We're trying to put the right parties together to form a transaction. So it's my job in real estate is kind of a little bit of both. The ultimate goal is to transact, but there's a lot of marketing and disseminating of information that goes into it. Back to the question for anyone looking to get into sales versus marketing, I totally agree with Bobby in that smaller companies, when you're undecided, are great. You get to wear all sorts of hats. My company's 4 people. We've all been doing it a long time, but as one of the owners, there isn't a job I haven't done at this place. And you get to do everything at a smaller firm. So if you're kind of undecided in which direction you want to go, pick a smaller mid-sized company, because you get to do a whole lot of things that you wouldn't at a big company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's great. And again, I think you had to echo Bobby's statement of that's kind of where you cut your teeth. And I think that's great. Yeah. Excellent. The next question that was submitted prior to this night, how is data science used in sales and
So I'll go ahead and I'll raise my hand on that one. Like I said, I've been in healthcare now for the last 15 plus years. And, when I first started, data wasn't really part of the equation. It was really showing a clinician the features and benefits of a product and how that's going to adapt to the patient and making their procedure easier. These days, as everyone knows, healthcare is a different ballgame. It's very cost centric, and a lot of these clinicians are evaluated, if you will, based on different metrics. So whether that's the time in which they perform a procedure, the patient satisfaction feedback, the nurse feedback, all of these different metrics go into Medicare reimbursement and all that game. I don't want to get too deep into that ball game, but companies are getting very analytical with their data and adapting their products to the goals of the hospitals and the clinicians. So it is a huge part of where healthcare is going in what we see.
Yeah, it's imperative to kind of go that route. So absolutely. Bobby, Andrew, anything in regards to that at all?
I'll throw something in there, and I wish I could see all of your faces and ask you to raise your hands, but you probably sum it up by saying, go watch The Social Dilemma, right? If you get an opportunity on Netflix and you want to be scared by data, certainly go watch that, but it's pretty educational. So the one thing that is on the other side of the data, and I'm going to try to relate this a little bit more to the human side, because I am not into the data, with some of marketing and brand marketing, it's a little bit more of the art versus the science, but they're certainly related. The way that we use data is really trying to learn that voice of the customer, right? And then if you can relate to that, it's real easy for a marketer to stand up here and say, well, I think it's working because it feels good, it looks good. I came up with the idea, or I helped art direct the idea, so it's got to be working, right? But you have to, when you're especially working with sales teams and that sales enablement side, you sometimes get called to the carpet and you have to prove that. And so on a very simple form, data is incredibly important. And of course, as you know, we're evolving into a much more digital ecosystem. There's so much data available, but I always like to say, listen, who cares about the incoming data if you don't have a mechanism to take it back out and use it? So thinking about CRM and inbound marketing, you really need to be able to have somebody who can interpret that data that you can then relate to everything else that you're doing. And, at that point, the artists and the sales team and the data analysts can all come together and be happy with the decisions that are being made, especially if you have to be agile and change. It can't just always be on feeling.
100%. Absolutely. Andrew, anything else there?
Oh, he's back.
I lost you guys for a sec.
Oh. I can hear you. Yep, we can hear you.
All right. I lost the end of, I didn't hear the end of Bobby's comment.
Yeah, just seeing if you had anything else.
Gotcha. So, it is really specific. The data analytics side of it are absolutely heavily relied on, and I would say most sales roles at this point. Like Bobby said, there's so much data out there. There's so many different ways to grab it. Everything we do as a company in real estate is data driven, whether it is population density, household incomes, traffic counts, shopping patterns. We'll see owners of shopping centers pay third parties to evaluate cell phone data of where the customers are actually coming from. And then, that helps everyone just back into a decision on whether, transaction makes sense or not. But it is imperative, and it is, obviously catered to whatever business line you're in.
Yeah. And, even just to piggyback on all those comments, which are great, for my own work and, my daily activities, sometimes reporting, it was such a pain looking at reports, and I don't want to look at the reports. I just want to go and do things. but looking at the reports, the details are absolutely in there, and it really helps you target what you need to do out in the community and where you need to focus, at least from my end. So yeah, so I agree. It's extremely vital. We did actually receive a question from one of the attendees, James. And James's question, which I figured would certainly come up, is pandemic related, as we're all doing this via Zoom as opposed to in person. All right, so James asks, many companies are not hiring right now due to the pandemic. He has applied to over 100 companies and heard back from none of them. Secured some sales interviews due to networking. Any suggestions on this? So it's certainly a good question, and very apropos to what's going on right now. Does anybody want to address that one?
Well, it's probably a good thing for me to address, since I'm in the healthcare industry. You know, when things started to go awry, hospital access became zero. So, you know, literally we could not get into a hospital unless you had a real reason. So, I mean, that played a really interesting card, because from a hospital administrator standpoint, you're effectively, you know, possibly keeping out these annoying sales folks, right? But on the other hand, you don't have the support from industry that you need in the operating room or what have you. What's been interesting that's come out of this is that the companies that are thriving are the most innovative in the industry, that are coming out with new technology. And this kind of circles back to his, I think it was James, you said his question.
Yep.
My advice to James is that, you know, of the 100 companies that you've applied to, is this just, you know, you're blindfolded, you're throwing a dart, or are you actually being pretty strategic on what you're going after? Because I think that you need to align yourself with where the market's going. And, you know, with the company that I'm with now, they're manufacturing single-use scopes in the GI market. And that's historically been a reusable market. And right now, the market's going towards, let's not have any infection in the hospital. So it's an interesting kind of play in where you want to be. And I guess, you know, not to go on and on, but I think you need to look at where you want to be from a sales perspective, and then see where that market's going, and then really focus your energy and time on doing the research, and not just saying, okay, I'm just going to blast my resume out to hundreds of different companies.
Yeah, that's certainly good advice. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Kenny said too. And, you know, if you're blindly, like you said, throwing a dart, or, you know, focus on an industry, right? If you wanted to get into like real estate, for example, well, back up and say, okay, what could I do to help my position? And I would say, you know, go and take the hours and get your real estate license. You know, look at the industry, and then look at if there are any ancillary things that you can do to position yourself just a little bit better than the next person out there doing the same thing that you are.
And don't feel like you have to take a traditional route, right? And I think I'm a perfect example of that. When I graduated from St. Michael's College, I had a biology degree, right? And that's the one thing I say is, like, nobody graduates with a biology degree and they're a biologist. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you're going to go on to grad school and you will specialize in something if you want to be a doctor, or you're going to go work in a lab. And maybe after a few years, at that point, you can claim that you're a biologist. I just have a biology degree, right? So if I would have stayed on a traditional career path, I would have probably struggled. Obviously much different with the pandemic. So try something different, right? You know, we kind of talked about the idea of do a little bit of research in your industry, because I'll tell you right now, in the logistics space for food, being an essential business, we get hundreds upon hundreds of applications, and we are always hiring. Now, I'll give you one example of a colleague of mine. very blue collar type of, or I'm sorry, white collar type of guy. Always been in sales and marketing, business development. Well, we run very blue collar warehouses. And when the guy at the top said to my buddy, hey, listen, we got an opening for a GM in Federalsburg, Maryland, which probably none of you are going to be like, oh yeah, Federalsburg, because it's nowhere. I need you to step up and be the GM in Federalsburg because we need to move on from our current leadership. What did he want to do that? Did he want to trade in his loafers for steel-toed boots? No, but he's going to get an incredible education. He's going to probably come back to business development and be way better off. And that same theory holds true to waiting tables, joining the military. I'm not telling you guys to do any of this stuff specifically, but life experience, when things level off, is going to pay dividends, especially in the world of sales and marketing. If you can have a conversation with somebody based on a picture on their wall or build rapport based on something that you've done, you're going to be so much better off when you finally get there. So be patient. It'll level off. Do a little bit of research, but understand that you might take a very non-traditional approach to what you want to end up doing.
Yep. And again, I will piggyback on all those comments, even for myself. I was a history major and now I'm in sales and marketing. So, it's like Bobby said, it's a big wide open world out there, and don't pigeonhole yourself. Keep a lot of your options open, certainly. So hopefully, James, all of that information helped. Let's see, we do have a few minutes left, and just to kind of even round out, maybe with one last question. How do all of you see things going in the future? Because obviously, I know for myself anyway, the pandemic and the world that we're in now, it's drastically changed the way that I do marketing, the way a lot of us do. Typically, I'm out in the community. We can't be out in the community anymore. How do you see our current environment changing things going forward?
Sure. I'll start. Again, it's back to the specific businesses like, Kenny with the one-use GI scopes. Most of my clients are adapting. Starbucks, for example, who do most of their work in New England, all their stores going forward, well, they'll have a mobile pickup window outside the actual store. So you can drive up, you don't even have to go in, and you can pick up your coffee. Same thing with Chipotle. They have a mobile order window in all their new stores that are rolling out. The dark kitchens, which are basically, restaurants that are pumping out high-end delivery food in big cities, are a huge thing right now because the restaurants are closed. All the big grocery chains like Whole Foods are same thing, dark grocery stores that are just focused on delivery. So industries are adapting, and a lot of them, at least in my world, were going in this direction anyway. But maybe it was a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, and COVID really kicked that into gear where they had to move just a lot faster than they would in traditional circumstances. I think in the long term, it's going to shake up a lot of business, but will help adapt a lot of them, move everyone forward, and just expedite some plans, with negative effects, but a lot of positive as well.
I'll chip in there. I'll kind of take it on a different approach here, and I think my position in brand marketing, working for a very humble family-owned business in a very humble industry that really values its reputation. I'll say this, these trends are going to come and go. Be your most authentic self. And that's both for yourself as well as the business that you are working for. You have to be smart enough to understand the data and to understand the trends, even to the point of sometimes leveraging those trends for your own gain as a sales and marketing type business. But really at the end of it, what is rewarded, I think, is finding a way to be very authentic with your brand. And so, yeah, things are changing, but that one thing right there will remain constant. Because if you think about the filtered view that we have, right? Like we know that media outlets are biased on one side or the other. It doesn't matter. It's just bias either way you cut it. Web search data, whoever goes to the second page of Google, not me, but I got friends that will go to page 16 to find the truth, right? There's so much of this distillation of information that it's really easy to get caught up in that, especially from a business. So if you have a product that you believe in and a business that you believe in or a service that you believe in, maintain that authenticity, because if you're not and you over leverage pandemics or some of this climate that we're in, you will get called out for it. So as a little bit of brand advice, if you guys end up making it into this career, take that little bit of advice and just be authentic and real, and let some of the pretenders kind of do all of the fake stuff. And eventually that authenticity will bubble up to the top.
Yeah, I know we only have a minute or two left, but I think you said it. I think you said it all, Bobby. Right now the cream will rise to the top, as we like to say in sales. The sales is really not about what you're selling. It's about your customer and what their goals are. And I think that a lot of the mistakes that people make in sales is trying to deliver the features and benefits to the customer without actually listening to what the goals are of that customer. And I would say that, we all learn the hard way, and I did too, starting out in copier sales and just trying to sell boxes. And, if there's one thing during this environment, is that this is an extremely tough environment to sell in. And you really need to, as Andrew said earlier, be strategic on what you're going after. And I think at the end of the day, we will certainly be sounding boards for you. And I hope you all have our contact information, and I'm happy to help and answer any questions you guys have moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's as we have about a minute left. I think that's a great way to end there, Kenny. And it was mentioned in the chat as well, but for any of the attendees, please feel to reach out to any of the panelists, myself as well. We're on SMC Connect. Highly encourage everybody to utilize that. And honestly, it's in the kind of St. Mike's tradition. I mean, we're all one big family, and I know we're here just because we've been where you are at one point, and we get it, and we absolutely want to help you out and encourage you through this time as well. So whatever any of us can do, and I'll speak for the panelists as well, whatever any of us can do, certainly let us know and reach out. So on that note, Andrew, Kenny, Bobby, I want to thank you guys very, very much for attending this evening. Really appreciate it, and hope everybody stays safe and well out there, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.